It's important to invest in yourself. Sometimes you hear people like, oh, you're going to go work out again, or you're selfish by spending time doing this. Well, actually, no, this will have good outcomes. Mental clarity will be there. I'll be in a better mood. I think it's important for leaders to really make the time to invest in themselves because it's actually helping other people.
He's a purpose-driven CEO of a $100 million healthcare organization, and is recognized for building high-performance teams that deliver measurable results. He's also an accomplished endurance athlete, completing multiple Ironmans and marathons, channeling that same discipline and grit from competition into his leadership approach. We have the inspiring Jon Calvin on the show.
As a leader, as a CEO, we have to be able to pivot, navigate, and change pretty quickly. You're dealing with some high pressure situations. If you have pressure, you're probably in a position to have impact.
What is mental toughness to you?
It's the ability to...
Jon, good to see you, man.
Likewise.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this conversation. We met fairly recently, went out for lunch, great quality conversation. One of the things that really impressed me about you is the commitment that you've got both to excellence when it comes to business and when it comes to your well-being as well. For those listening, there are Ironmans, marathons, and so on when it comes to the well-being side, but you also run a $100 million company. And so I'd love to start this conversation with the parallels that you've noticed between the two and how they've enabled you to excel in both of those areas.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in playing sports and having team organized activities outside of school growing up. So at a very young age, I was attracted to playing sports. And through that, I learned a lot about teamwork, leadership, work ethic, discipline, holding yourself accountable, self-control, so many things that are transferable into business. And one of the other aspects of sports is you get immediate feedback, how you're performing, you're ranking yourself against others, against yourself. You can measure your times and see if you're improving. And I think a lot of that can be applied to business, the systems you put in place, the outcomes you're trying to generate, the goals you're setting. How do you put a system in place to get to that goal? And I've just found that, sports has really set me up to be pretty disciplined in that process in business. And I try to lead with that as well. And I think there's some other benefits as well we can get into. But at high level, those are kind of the key things.
Well, the first one, when you said feedback and the immediate ability to get feedback from a sports standpoint, how do you go about doing that on a business side and ensuring that you're able to make those changes along the way and the adjustments that are going to enable you to be successful with that?
Yeah, I think in business, it's easier to measure against yourself, your baseline to, improve performance over time in specific areas. So, you have to measure things and track them over time, measuring what matters. Comparing to competitors or people in the industry is a little bit more challenging. In sports, you run a race, you know exactly where you fall against all the key competitors. So it's sometimes more difficult to find who's the top notch, within an industry, within a specific space in business. But I mean, there's obviously some industry benchmarks and metrics, but it's a little bit more opaque than it is in sports, which that's what I appreciate about sports is being able to truly have a little bit measurement in that. And we're trying to find other ways. We do a lot of different measurements, like through the balanced scorecard, OKRs, strategic planning. So we set targets and KPIs. So that helps keep us on track as well.
Yeah. What are some of those rhythms then within, okay, you've got your OKRs, you've got your different KPIs, you've got the different objectives that you're aiming to achieve. What's the cadence of checking in on those to make sure that the progress is being made?
Okay. So basically I'll zoom out a little bit farther. We do typically a 3-year strategic plan.
Yeah.
And, we don't stick to it perfectly, but it's at least setting us in the right direction where we're trying to go, what our priority areas are. And then we, on an annual basis, we'll do a balanced scorecard methodology for the organization. So those are the key objectives, targets for the year in those categories using that balanced scorecard framework. And we'll cascade that throughout the company. So that's a way to get it down to lower levels in the organization from the frontline staff working all together on that focus effort. And then with our executive team, we'll even go more granular with OKRs. So we'll set those up on a quarterly basis in advance of each quarter. And we'll meet on a weekly cadence. Every Monday morning, our senior leadership team meets for an hour to go through. Once we set those OKRs in the previous quarter for the following quarter, we'll go through our progress. And we try to narrow that down to really OKRs, for those that don't know, is objectives and key results. So we'll try to keep that a smaller list of like some of the key things we know we need to achieve for the quarter. And that can evolve pretty quickly. I'm working in healthcare space, which there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to pivot, navigate, and change pretty quickly. And OKRs has allowed us on a quarterly basis to have, a shorter time period to really focus in on because it's moving so quickly. So those systems have been really beneficial to the company and personally as well.
How long have you been implementing them on a company level? And then have you been implementing them on a personal level as well?
Last year, we implemented the OKRs for the company. I don't have currently a personal OKR like scorecard. I actually have a couple of friends that have done that and they've found value in that, but I haven't gone to that level yet. Have you done that?
Yeah, I've got the performance tracker and started doing that. It's about over the last 12 months and really getting diligent on having objective measures to know, okay, what is the growth that has to go through? What's that starting point? What's the end point? And then the progress towards that. So for myself and then for clients as well, we implemented that over the last, it's about the last 12, 24 months. Goals was always there. And there's something really accountable to OKRs, right?
Absolutely.
It's either you did it or you didn't, right?
That's right.
Yeah, there's no hiding in that way.
Exactly.
And so I guess when it comes to accountability within the organization and I guess within your own self as well, how important has that been when it comes to accountability? We'll talk about mental toughness. And I mean, there's going to be so much we're going to be able to talk about here. Let's start though, from an accountability standpoint, maybe how important it is for each person in your team to hold themselves accountable. And then what's the layer of external accountability that comes in to really magnify the growth that somebody goes through?
Yeah. So accountability is one of our top values. It's not in our value set when you look at our website, but it is something that we talk about a lot as a company and especially a senior leadership team, because one of books around accountability I really like is Extreme Ownership, or, really taking ownership for everything that happens within the organization, especially being a CEO. And, focusing on achieving those outcomes. If you don't hit them, explaining why, don't blame it on other people, take that ownership for it. That's been a big part of what we do because we are a very data-driven organization with trying to achieve these outcomes and goals and always be moving the bar and setting a higher standard. So I believe, our team does a pretty good job of leaning into that. As a leader, as a CEO, owning up to when you make mistakes. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. And if you're always putting blame on others, that seems to be kind of the culture you set. So I think if you have an accountability culture, that provides a healthy culture to the system. I think it creates opportunities where people feel willing to challenge, speak up, try new things, and really set the organization on the right track. We do have measures where from external factors, and this is a broader, more business scale. I mean, we have stakeholders who, are wanting to see how we're performing in certain areas, whether it's patient care, financial performance, how we're serving the communities with the breadth and scope of services we provide. And then some other just oversight regulation requirements. Healthcare is highly regulated, as you may know, but that is extremely important for accountability and just fairness. If people see that you're not holding people accountable, other people accountable, then people start stretching. The saying, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Yeah. There's some of that goes on if you don't have a fair and equitable system and have accountability within the company.
Yeah, you shared from an accountability standpoint, it's a couple of things in there. One, when it comes to innovation, if you're not okay and making it okay to make mistakes, not about making, same mistakes and repeating the same mistakes, but making mistakes is a part of innovation. It can't happen. It can't occur. Creativity can't occur unless you're willing to make mistakes, because you are very unlikely to get it right the first time, right?
Yeah,
if you're testing out some new stuff, like good on you if you're able to nail it every single time, but at some stage you're going to come unstuck. And so really modeling the ownership there of when a mistake happens, the owning up to it, you're demonstrating, you're modeling that behavior that somebody else is then able to model. And then the other part you mentioned is, it helps to build trust, within the organization. You mentioned like giving them what was it?
Give them an inch, they'll
An
take a
inch,
mile.
they'll go a mile. That was
yeah.
it. So the culture will create itself if you don't create it.
Yeah.
Right. And the ability to be able to do that is your ability to be able to continue executing over and over and over again and being consistent and in alignment with those core mechanisms that make it a great culture, whatever it is that you've deemed it to be. And if that doesn't happen, I think, yes, somebody can then go, oh, here's what the culture says, but here's what really goes on around here. And here's what I'm going to do instead. And I'd say as well, if that person isn't being held accountable, but then I'm being held accountable, it doesn't feel fair. And then all of a sudden I'm going to go, well, am I really going to push the boundaries here? Because when I do, I get held to account, but then somebody else doesn't. And so there ends up being inconsistencies. And I'd say as well, a layer of assumption that doesn't need to necessarily be there, but is there because there's inconsistencies occurring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, leading by example is so important in, any industry you're working in. Is, do you have that work ethic? Are you holding yourself accountable? How are you leading? And if you're setting a good tone at the top, it does help create a good culture. Yeah. It can go sideways really quick if you're not, like you said, with that inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Between how you're treating people.
Have you had to learn that the hard way? Has there been times, or have you learned it early on?
Sometimes you'll want to go easy on someone, and then someone sees that, and then it can be, create a snowball of those inconsistencies. And so keeping people accountable, but also providing them, quick feedback that's, positive and constructive to help them, improve, whether it's a direct report or someone, another colleague is important. But if you're conflict averse, sometimes that's difficult. Or if you're afraid of difficult conversations, sometimes you'll just let that slide. And sometimes that can be really damaging.
Yeah. What's your belief about making sure that you're having the tough conversations then?
Well, one of the ways I try to do that is, one, if something happens in a meeting or something like that, I try to wait till after the meeting and have construction conversations privately, pull them aside and try to have that pretty quickly after the event happens. So I think that's the best way to do it. On a recurring basis, I do one-on-ones with all the employees that report to me. And so we're checking in on a weekly basis. Because if you let something happen, something happens and you wait 6 weeks to address it, that's a problem.
Well, this is like the sporting parallel, right? If you waited 6 weeks and you keep racing in that way, 6 weeks, you're going to continue getting off track, or at the very least stay stagnant. Whereas if you'd made that adjustment, you're out on the train track, whether it's athletics or it's a team environment, you've got the opportunity to make those adjustments. And sometimes they can be a small adjustment. Right. So they don't have to be a massive adjustment. I've often shared, and I'll share within keynotes, of the difference between a tweak and a transformation. Like a tweak is a 1%, 2%, 5% shift. It's a single conversation that helps to tweak it. It's a slight change in how you're going about executing. A transformation is a monumental shift. Right. It's like a cultural transformation, or it's a life shift, or your kids leave home, or you get married, or there's a big experience that occurs, or you have a change in your purpose as to where it is that you're wanting to go. There are these big moments that occur, but I think some of those big moments could be avoided if we had made the tweaks along the way, because we'd gotten so far off track as a result of not making the tweaks that it ends up being a massive transformation we've got to go through because we got too far off track.
And that could happen in personal relationships, with letting things fester and boil up, instead of, having those conversations earlier on too. So it applies to a lot of different areas of life, right?
I wouldn't be at all surprised what's the divorce rate here in the US? About 50%, roundabout. How much that would decrease if there was a simple checking in that would occur on a consistent basis. Like Brittany and I, my wife and I, we do a thing called the weekly pulse, which are these four key questions that we soften that out of a model that I have for the performance reviews and stuff like that. Yeah. And the softening is like, okay, where did you feel appreciated? Second one, where did you feel triggered, taken advantage of, or where did I make your life more difficult? And then you come together, okay, what can we do about it? And then the fourth one being, what support do we need? What help do we need? External resources. And that's enabled that ongoing tweaks to occur, those ongoing tweaks that, possibly, within a space of 3 months, 6 months of something that was there could go on to then create some kind of resentment. And then same within a business sense, I can go create resentment in the team as well and dysfunction within the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you doing that? Do you have like a set time on the calendar when you're doing that every week?
It's each Sunday. Okay. Yeah, we might move it because and sometimes it ends up being, we didn't get it done on the Sunday. Maybe we end up doing it Monday. I think the latest that we've done it was a Wednesday the following week. So that's the latest where we go, you know what, there was just so many things on. But yeah, usually it's like sometime on the weekend. We might move it to, we've talked about maybe moving it to like a Friday, for example, or maybe Saturday, because Sunday of just wanting to have that completely off and not having to think and just have fun and just enjoy ourselves. So we'll see about that. But we've made sure that it's happened every single week since we met in person. And that was a couple of weeks after we'd met originally. So, and we've done it every single week since. So it's been, and it goes to what you shared, like making sure that you're getting the feedback on a consistent basis goes across every single dimension of our lives. I remember hearing years ago, what gets measured gets managed.
Right.
I know that for my own health and well-being when it comes to my different measurements from a body tracking standpoint. I've got a sheet, it's within my performance tracker that goes back to 2009. And aside from a couple of years where I wasn't consistent, it's mostly been pretty consistent throughout the entire, what's that, at the time of this record, like 17 years. And had scale body fat measurement tracking there with the different pieces. And then over the past, I think it's been about 10 years of, bicep, shoulders, chest, waist, stomach, butt, and thigh. And that just enables for, yeah, exactly that. Just being able to go, all right, man, over Christmas, put on a bit. I put, there's a few inches that went on the waist, be working and build, take that off, right? Yeah. And I've found the more that I have objective data, yes, there can be some subjective pieces in there as well because it's important to feel things. But the objective pieces matter big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're more hardcore than I am with the measuring. That's incredible.
Well, I think it's what works for you, right? Yeah. And I know that there's some incredible things that work for you, which we'll get into. Let's actually talk about mental toughness. How important has that been, both on the business side and definitely on the health side? So what is it? How many Ironmans? How many marathons?
I've done 3 full distance Ironmans, 5 marathons, and I believe 4 half-Ironmans.
Wow.
Yeah. Now my new sport is HYROX, which just became popular in the United States.
Yeah, for those listening, what is it? Because I've heard about it, I haven't done it yet. So
okay, so all these events, I think all of them except maybe 1 or 2 have been in convention centers. So they started, I believe the company started in Germany. The sport became popular in Europe, and then just in the last couple of years, it became popular in the United States. And what it is it's a fitness race. So they rent out these convention center spaces, and they have basically the same exact setup. I mean, they'll do the layout a little bit different depending on the configuration of the facility, but it's the same workout. So it's a combination of running and station work. And you essentially run 5 miles. They have this thing called a rock zone, so it's always a little more than 5 miles, but you run 8 1,000 kilometer runs. And in between those, you have 8 exercises. So you'll run 1,000 meters, and then sorry, I said kilometers, 1,000 meters. That'd be a lot. That'd be a really long race. So it's 1,000 meters each run. And then you do a station. So it goes run, ski erg for 1,000 meters. Then you run again 1,000 meters. You do sled push, and there's a pro division, there's an open division, so it's different weights, but it's a pretty heavy sled push. Then you do a sled pull, and then the next station is burpee broad jumps, rowing on a concept 2 erg, and then it's farmer's carry, lunges, and then 100 wall ball stand. So you accumulate 5 miles of running, you do these stations, and it's all for time. So as fast as you can do it. And it's become really competitive. Yeah. So it's their goal is to make it an Olympic sport eventually. And so one of the founders is a former Olympian. And so it's picked up a lot of traction. We actually have a race coming up this weekend, and our gym has a big crew going out to that. So we're excited to do that. But it's a fun way to stay competitive as I get older. And it's nice to mix it up between that and triathlon and some other sports.
Great. So then mental toughness, let's talk about it. What is mental toughness to you?
The ability to push through discomfort in some challenging situations. So do you have the ability to do that, or do you give up in those situations? And so, I mean, my motto is, well, like many others, is do hard things. And really, I think some of those activities test your limits. Like, do I have the toughness to follow through with this? I think it comes down to also what you talked about, like your discipline, tracking all the time, like doing things when you're not motivated to do them, when no one's watching, and staying consistent with that. So mentally, you may want to be doing something else or want to check out. But it's that ability to drive forward and keep moving. And I think if you have that mental toughness, like we've talked about the parallels of sports and business, I think you could have it in sports, business, and different aspects of your life where it applies. And I think it's good to stretch that as much as you can to see how strong you can build your mental toughness over time.
So then let's talk about the moment that you don't feel like doing something. Talk us through the strategy that you utilize so that from start to finish, okay, I don't feel like doing something. Is there words that you say to yourself, like internal self-talk? What specifically, how do you go about doing that? Guaranteed. Like I have this at different times. I don't feel like doing certain things. I've got my own approach for that. How do you go about it?
Yeah, I'll give you examples of like things I do from a habit perspective versus just even internal talk, but let's just do the easy one at the start of the day, waking up when you need to. So when I wake up even earlier when I was doing triathlon, especially with training for Ironmans, because
what time?
4:30 a.m.
4:30. Yep.
Because I have a pretty intense work schedule, and the only way to make it work, getting my workouts in, is to do it early in the morning. So that was pretty challenging. Going from waking up a little bit later to going down to 4:30, and so just putting my cell phone in the bathroom. And so I set my alarm. It makes me get out of bed, walk over there to pick it up. And that's a lot easier to, get yourself up and going than having it on your nightstand. And it's easy to hit the snooze button and roll back over and go to bed. So there's that. And then just knowing, like, every time I get started with it, it works out and I feel better as I get going. Like sometimes you don't feel like working out, you feel sore, you get 10 minutes into the workout and you feel okay. So it's really like just the mindset that I can get through this. It'll be okay. Don't listen to your mind or your body and just kind of power through it. And I think it's just building that habit and muscle memory over time to just do things when you don't want to do it. I think if you need to avoid distractions too, like sometimes if I start looking at my phone first thing in the morning, if I get on social media, any of those things, sometimes I'll delay starting when I need to start. So I try to avoid, I'll check my phone for emergency, notifications really, but really I try to just stay in a routine as I wake up and follow that through and try not to think too much about it. Because you can psych yourself out and talk yourself out of working out or getting up or, all those different things. So I'm curious what your approach is.
Yeah. I mean, and it's easier to not do it, right? At the end of the day. And our brains are wired in that way to do the path of least resistance. And there was something that Jim Fielding on the show recently, who's a former president of Disney Stores Worldwide, doing some great work now in the coaching space as well. Great guy, good friend of mine. And one of the things he shared in there I thought was really, really helpful, is doing an access audit. And so looking at the different things that you're accessing, like you said about the phone, for example, just don't give yourself access to that phone. Early on or at a specific time. Increase the likelihood that you're going to get the things done that you need to by providing and creating an environment that is conducive to your success. So I thought that was really, really insightful, something that I hadn't really thought about too much. Like I aim to have a great environment, but just actually doing an access audit on you and just going like, where specifically is the friction?
Yeah.
And what could I potentially remove out so it's one less decision that I have to make? Literally yesterday was it? Sunday. It was either yesterday or the day before, 2 days ago. It was 2 days ago. I did not want to go to the gym. And it had been a massive week of interviews. There was an intense amount of work and I just did not feel like going. And the way that I almost trick myself into doing that. It's similar to what you're referring to is, okay, just get to the gym. All right. Your body's feeling pretty tired. Even if you just go and have a recovery day, right? And you do some active recovery, just at least get that done. And what it's doing is it's continuing to build the habit in of, okay, it's X amount of minutes to the gym. I've got to make that commitment. And then it was, all right, just do the warm up that you normally do. Right. So it was just the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. When it's a pull day for me, I love doing pull-ups first up, and I do like 4 sets and aim to get to at least like about 30 odd I can get to at the moment in the 4 sets total. And like my personal best this year is like 14 in a row in the first set. And I got to 12 in that first set. I'm like, dude, yeah. Like, and just slowly but surely, I'm reinforcing over and over again the behaviors that I'm aiming to execute on. But it went right down to the end where I was then doing my stretches. And, you know, we've got the cold plunge and the sauna down in the other facility, like in the same facility, but in another area. And I go, dude, like, I don't really feel like doing that. I better get back. And like, there's this, again, the self-talk that's going on that we're all dealing with at different times. And in that, I just go through the stretches, just walk down there. And if you don't want to go in there, don't go in there. You know, walk down there, go, I might as well go in there for at least 5 minutes, you know, and then ended up going for a longer period of time. And it's just slowly but surely moving your way through it when it's challenging. Like, because the way I think about this is anyone can do this stuff when it's easy.
Right.
Like when it's easy, when you haven't got any pressure, no stuff on, but it's when it's really difficult. I think that separates those who have really built and developed the mental toughness over time compared to those who don't. And I think about it, Djokovic, I've referred to him a number of times, and I massively respect the guy on the tennis side of things. His key to mental toughness, he said, is the mind is a traveler. It goes into the past, it goes into the future. The key to mental toughness isn't stopping it from doing that. It's how quickly can you bring it back. Yeah. Right. Because you're going to dwell on, oh man, this didn't happen, or I don't feel good, or you're going to worry about what's coming next. But the ability to be able to bring it back into that present moment. And I think just thinking about it now from what I did a couple of days ago, it was me thinking about, oh man, I feel bad, you know, don't feel that great from previous, or I'm thinking about, oh, you know, I don't really want to do that coming up, you know, that kind of part of the exercise. And I go, just come back to now, right? Just do this and let's see what happens. And I found that to work really well for doing something hard, difficult when I don't necessarily feel like doing it. I think self-talk is a massive one for me though. How important is self-talk to you? And do you talk to yourself in third person, in your own head, out loud, or all of the above?
All of the above. Oh, and just one point, I just want to say one thing with your example, like those situations where I think it's okay to look back at those situations where you didn't want to get up, you did the workout, and the satisfaction, I get more satisfaction out of the workouts I don't want to do and they go well than the ones that I'm motivated and ready to go for. And so when I don't feel like doing something, I'll remember that workout. I was like, I was so satisfied from being tough enough to push through, get up, go through.
So you remember a different workout that you did in the moment?
Yeah. One where I didn't want to do it.
That's good.
And then it felt good. You know, like I was so satisfied. Those are the most gratifying.
Are you referring back to a specific moment? Like a specific workout, or is it more just the example of what you've done multiple times? You're going to a specific workout?
Both. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. That's really good.
I think that helps.
Yeah. I have this thing called reference points where when you're building in a positive reference point and creating behavioral change, disassociating from my past, I'm associating to my present, and I'm aligning to my future. The disassociation from the past is I'm distancing myself as much as I possibly can from a person I used to be, somebody that I'm not wanting to be anymore. Then I'm associating to who I am right now, which is acknowledging the workout, in this case, the workout that I'm doing. And then I'm aligning to what's coming next. So the example here could be, man, you remember when you were going to go do that workout and you just gave up? Like you didn't actually follow through. Look how good this feels. Look at, like, it feels like you did not want to do this today. You woke up, you didn't want to do it. You went and executed on it anyway. Imagine repeating that over and over again for the next 3, 6, 12 months. Imagine what that's going to look like. And I've just gone from past, present, and future, the structure of it. And because when then there's a moment in the future where I don't want to do something, right? As you've done, which I think is masterful, I'm going to definitely utilize this and test this out going forward, is referring to a specific moment that happened in the past and bringing that into the present, all right? Distancing still from, you can distance yourself from past, but really, really associating into this moment and utilizing, because at the end of the day, the reference points are there to build up the amount of examples that you have for how you can versus how you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who gives up is the person that gives in to the can't pile, right? The stack of reference points as to how they weren't able to do it, how they didn't follow through, how they were inconsistent, how they weren't mentally tough in these moments. Whereas those who are able to follow through simply have a bigger stack of reference points for how they've been able to do it. There's parts of the brain as well, which we might talk about at some stage that I've heard recently that builds with doing hard things. But yeah, that's how, like, from a reference point standpoint, I found to be really, really effective.
Yeah, that's really good. How important have you found it to be, or effective, external factors such as a workout partner who's expecting you to show up that day, or being an executive coach, as a leader, they're watching to see if you're on track, or even when I was doing Ironman, I'd have a coach who did my programming, and he'd call me out if I missed a workout and to see what was going on. So I think that additional external force also motivated me to follow through.
It's good and I think this is important to talk about, because we talk about accountability before, the difference between internal and external accountability. Internal accountability and external accountability together can be extraordinary, because if you only have external accountability and you're not holding yourself accountable, you spend way more time with yourself than your external accountability partner in that case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the ability to be able to do the hard things when no one else is around, I think is incredibly important, especially if you're aiming to become extraordinary at something.
Right.
You can't just be doing it when somebody else is around. It has to be part of your DNA. It has to be part of who you are and how it is you're executing when no one else is watching, right? Nobody else would even know. And your ability to hold yourself accountable there, I think part of that is continuing to raise our standards as to what we're okay and not okay with, based on our own standards. And so the internal accountability has to be there. I see it for any long-term sustainable change to occur, because otherwise when you remove the external, again, you'll go back and revert back. And on top of that, if you have that, I found like the clients that I have on the private side of things, coaching wise, when we have the internal accountability and the external accountability on top of that, it just goes to a whole nother level. It goes to a whole nother level, because there's a whole nother level of excellence that you can step into. And so I think both of those together, really, really important. And I'd say the third example of that would be internal accountability without external accountability. And that can still be great,
Mm-hmm.
but especially if the external accountability is maybe the opposite of external accountability. That's okay. You're fine. You don't need to go for a workout today.
Right.
Then your standards can potentially drop down because you give in to the non-accountability that's there, or the lower standards that are maybe there. So I think both are important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. Let's talk about that self-talk piece, because I think this is so important. How we communicate with ourselves, how we language things in our own minds goes a long way to determining the success that we have. So do you talk to yourself out loud? Is it in your mind? Is it that, like I said, third person, first person? How do you go about that?
I probably go back and forth between third person and first person. So
Okay.
I'll do it internally. It's more like motivating myself.
Yeah,
Like just saying, you can get through this.
Awesome.
You've got this, especially if I've done it before, for like an Ironman. Like that was a big one where it was more, the first one was just to complete it. So it was like, you put the training in during the races, you've done all the work. All you have to do is, follow your pacing, the systems you've put in place, and enjoy the experience. And like towards the end, it's getting hard, and just saying, I know I can complete this. You've got this. Sometimes when it's out loud, it's usually like, don't be a wimp. It's usually more like the negative, but yeah, I mean, people can do a lot more than they think they can do. And like trying to keep, for the most part, a positive mindset and having belief in yourself that you can achieve it. But I think you have to have that backed up by putting in the work behind it as well. So
yeah. So interesting. So let's talk the wimp. Do you ever identify as the wimp, as in you're a wimp, versus don't be a wimp?
It's typically don't be a wimp.
Yeah. This is really important, because you're not degrading yourself.
Right.
You're saying don't be something else.
Yes.
right? In that moment, you're disassociating, you're separating yourself from, in this case, a wimp, right? What happens so often in people's self-talk is you freaking wimp, right? How could, and then all of a sudden the cycle of the negative self-talk kicks in.
Yeah.
There was a really interesting thing that this used to be me many, many years ago. I've done a huge amount of work on this over the past 15 years. There was 2 moments though, when I first started playing pickleball a couple of years ago. And one was, I hit a bad shot and I called myself a dickhead. It's a classic Aussie term, right? You dickhead, right? Yeah. You dickhead. And it wasn't until after the game that I noticed that I said that, and I realized that is so foreign to me now. And I go, that's not, and I had a conversation with myself, that's not okay, right? That is uncalled for, no. And it was, now, takes a little bit of time to get used to that.
Yeah.
There was a second time that it occurred, and I noticed, I called myself, I said, you idiot. And what was beautiful about that, because, and this is the key thing about, I say that, again, the parallels between sport and any single area of our lives that we're wanting to get better in. I play a game with myself, and I have done this since 2011, so like 15 plus years, of how can I, rather than it being, I need to get it perfect in a moment, it's how can I continue getting better and better and better in a specific area. And so rather than it being, okay, that's never going to happen again, it's, okay, how quickly could I realize it next time? Mm-hmm. And so it's a game that I'm playing with myself. How quickly can I realize it? Because it's then in the realization and the awareness of it that I can then make the switch across to something more empowered, something more empowering. In this case, it was in the same point. I said, you idiot. And I remember I said to myself out loud, I go, oh, you're not an idiot, man. And it was just this moment that I had with myself. No one else heard it. No one else, I was just in like a little, like I said it out loud. I go, you're not an idiot, man. But it was just this, and it was a reinforcing. It hasn't happened since, right? Yeah. Now I get frustrated. I get challenged. I get, there's a level of emotion that comes in. I get pretty frustrated, but I'm not bringing myself down. And that's a standard that I think is really, really important. The way that I see it is being our own uncompromising best friend. And so many of us are walking around as our own worst enemy, which is why I want to really touch on and continue having this conversation about the self-talk. Our own worst enemy is somebody who's kicking yourself when you're down, and when you're up, you're saying it's not going to last. Right? A best friend is someone who will support you when you're up, go, oh, amazing, and support you when you're down, celebrate when you're up, support you when you're down. It's, oh, it's okay. But an uncompromising best friend is someone who, support when you're down, celebrate when you're up, and when it's required, when it's needed, give yourself a good kick up the ass, because sometimes you need that, right? Mm-hmm. Like the don't be a wimp would be a great example. Don't be a wimp, man. And the language I'll utilize is, come on, man, you're better than this. Step up. Right. Let's go. Yeah. Come on, step up. And ensuring that the conversation that you're having with yourself on a regular basis, that you are your own uncompromising best friend. Mm-hmm. I think it is incredibly important. Would you say that you are that for yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
And what you said earlier, I think the negative self-talk is extremely dangerous. It can erode confidence, performance. I mean, even if you look at the highest level of athletes, major leagues, a lot of them have similar skill sets, physical capabilities, but it's between their ears, the mental game that can set them apart. And they get, you hear people getting in slumps, and then they have that negative self-talk and that vicious cycle. And it can be the difference between being in the major leagues versus a minor league player.
Yeah. We call it is it called the yips? Do you have it here? Is it the yips in Australia? I think it's the yips.
I think, I believe that's like, especially in gymnastics that happened in the Olympics. Yeah.
In Australia, I think they call it the yips, where someone, a guy in Australian football, and like they're kicking for goal, and then they've missed a few in a row, and all of a sudden, you got the yips, and then, it's like, just can't get it back on track, and then they've got to go through some again, the routine. It's often, again, it's the mental thing. They know how to do it, right. They know how to execute, but it's that pressure situation. So let's talk then about extreme pressure, right? Extreme stress or extreme pressure in these moments within business, within life, within leadership, within health and well-being. How do you manage these moments of real stress, of extreme pressure?
Yeah. I mean, I think overall, just my demeanor's pretty even keeled. I try to be pretty steady.
Has that always been the case?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
And I think it's, sometimes it's if you've gone through some adversity and challenges, and sometimes it's easier to handle controlled chaos at times if you're used to that. So I would say, I've dealt with quite a few high pressure situations. And
what's an example of a high pressure situation that you've dealt with?
So one of the most difficult in the business world was going through a complete turnaround.
With the company
I'm with.
Now.
So I didn't start as CEO. I was actually the controller. And then I moved to CFO and then CEO over time. And 2 years into moving to Texas, taking the role, I was a controller at the time. And we went through some financial challenges, expanded rapidly on a weak financial foundation, had a lot of good ideas, but some of it, had a related party company we were trying to launch in a different adjacent field and various other things. And we just expanded too quickly with not having the financing in place. So through that really difficult situation where the company was near going, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, didn't have much days cash on hand, very difficult, challenging situation. There's a complete restructuring of the organization, and I became CFO through that process. So the first task as becoming CFO, the COO became CEO. We had a lot of different changes. We had to come up with a turnaround plan. And a lot was riding on that because at the time we were serving over 86,000 patients in our market. A lot of people that were low income didn't have access to other healthcare providers in the area. And at the time, over 600 employees that were at risk of losing, their job as well. So I was a pretty young CFO, a ton of pressure on the CEO, me, and the rest of the executive team to come up with a sound plan to get through that period of time. And I was working, I think the first 6 months, 7 days a week.
Wow.
There were days where I didn't leave the office, spent the night there, and just to get through it. So that was a difficult situation, but I can talk more about how I handle high pressure today as well. But if you want to.
Yeah, well, with that, so had you been through a turnaround before?
No.
So this was like deep end, like throw you in, let's see if you can see if you sink or swim.
Yes.
So how did you handle it there? We'll come to how you handle things now. How did you handle that stress? Did it impact your relationship? Did it impact your well-being at the time? Or were those things saving graces in these moments?
When you're working that many hours, it's going to impact it a little bit negatively, but fortunately I had a strong support system in my family. So I had the buy-in, they understood the importance of it, so that helped to have that support. Well-being, I still tried to get my workouts in as much as I could. Yeah, I had to scale back a little bit, but and I'll talk more about this. I think in high pressure situations, especially when they're prolonged like that, do not give up some of those key aspects, sleep, working out, exercise, nutrition. I actually double down on stuff like that typically now today. Like when I get more stress, I have to actually increase the things that help offset the stress. And for me, that's typically exercise.
Yeah. Well, this part makes a lot of sense because this is about increasing our capacity to deal with the situations that arise. And if you've only got a small amount of capacity, that's okay when you're not stressed, when you're going through just the general day-to-day life. But your ability to have capacity, an increased capacity at times of increased stress, otherwise the waves are going to come crashing over you and it ends up being a spiral downward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how did you go about like in those, your health and well-being there was still an absolute commitment there that you had the support systems in place when it came to from a family. Let me ask this actually, did you have a conversation with your wife at the time?
Yes.
Wife at the time. And did you have a conversation together? And what did that look like to ensure that you had the support?
Yeah. So basically, I remember going home the evening when I knew I was going to be moving into the role and like the situation we were in and how big of how much of a mountain we had to climb through that process and what the risks were, what the opportunity was with it, what the impact would be if, we were shutting down, and also the impact on our potential family. I mean, the financial security, because I didn't know if we didn't make it, then I'd have to be, looking for something else. So I think there was enough, meaning behind what we were trying to do with the mission of the organization, the impact of patients to the staff. And then on the upside for me was the opportunity to become a CFO. And this was my shot at a pretty young age, having that opportunity. So all things considered, she bought into the thought, like, we'll I wouldn't say it was rolling the dice, but we'll take this, risk and try this out because of all these factors and considerations. And so I needed her buy-in, or it could have been a very rocky situation because of just the commitment I had to make, especially for that 6-month period.
Did you feel that then increased your conviction in actually, okay, this is it, going to go and do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went all in on it.
You went all in. Yeah. Did you believe in the moment? Because, okay, this is the first time you've ever done it. Others you're able to refer back to, like we mentioned about the workouts before, of, oh, hey, you've been through this before. You know how good you feel when you get through on the other side of this. This is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Did you believe in that moment that you could do it?
I believed once we started analyzing the business and what levers we had and moves we could make to get to a financially sustainable place. Once I helped, as a team develop that plan, I had a lot more confidence in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what were some of those key components of what enabled it to turn around?
So it was a service line. I mean, it was looking at the composition of our services. We had a related party technology company that it didn't make sense to continue to operate. So we had to make some hard decisions with some reductions in force and, adjusting the model, and then lean into certain service lines that were, where there's plenty of demand in the market that made sense financially. So we just had to modify the portfolio of services. We consolidated a lot of the administration space. We had multiple campuses. We shrunk it down into one. I mean, there was probably 12 or 13 things on our list that were like key drivers of that turnaround that we identified. I mean, anytime you reduce your workforce, that's difficult, having those conversations, because these people wanted to be there. They were engaged. And so that was difficult, but for the ability to keep, the majority of the system intact, and then be able to, what was really rewarding was we were able to, once we got more stable, we were able to rehire some of those people that left previously. So
that must have felt really good.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah. They're still there today. So that's good.
What about so you said like 12 or 13 different items. We don't have to go through each of those, but how did you go about prioritizing what to execute on when you're in those moments? I mean, it's do or die. Right? If you get one of those wrong, and it could be the end of the business. Yeah.
And we tried to rank them based on how immediate we could do it.
Yeah.
What the financial impact would be, what the service level impact would be.
So how much it was going to take.
Yeah.
What the return could potentially be.
But we didn't have when you don't have much of a clock to work with, you have to move quickly.
Yeah.
And so we had to rip the Band-Aid off. It wasn't like we were able to, spread this out over an extended period of time. So we made a lot of the moves pretty quickly. Once we determined that we felt they were accurate, like what our assessment was, we moved on it right away.
Yeah. How many years ago was that?
That was 12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're thinking today, how has it progressed? And are there any changes in how you'd approach a high pressure situation or a high stress situation now?
I don't think I would do it differently, but I did learn a lot through the process. So I think we could streamline and expedite it.
Right.
In a similar scenario in the future. So
what were some of those lessons?
Communication's important.
Yeah.
Explaining why we're doing it to the organization and our stakeholders, getting out in front of that as much as possible. When there's warning signs, to really, start making adjustments, communicating, start making those moves sooner, so you don't have this huge cut and reduction all at once like that. So you learn a lot about business as well. So the importance of cash flow, looking at the cash flow statement, understanding managing capital. How do you deploy your resources in the best way possible through a company to get the best outcomes possible? So putting people in the right places, going back to the sports comparison, drafting the right team and putting them in the right spots based on their talents and skills, and, based on their expertise when you're getting input and, making decisions, weighting their input higher if they're an expert in that area, kind of like Ray Dalio talks about, with almost like everyone's on a baseball card. You look at what their stats are in specific areas. So kind of taking that approach. And I I found the value of, collaboration. I think one of the benefits of going through a situation like that is you really build a bond with the people you're working with. When you're in the trenches with someone like that in a turnaround situation, and there's a loyalty that builds up and just the ability to work well with others, especially those that you're dealing with those situations with. So I've experienced that as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So we both hit 40s, our 40s, all right? You're a year older than me. I'll take that to the grave, I reckon. So I'm 41, you're 42, all right? And, when you hit your 40s, it's from a well-being standpoint, it's totally different, at least I've found, than 20s, in your teens, and you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And you're good, right?
Yeah.
What have you noticed some changes, and what are some of the things that you put in place to ensure that in your 40s, you're still in great shape?
The biggest difference I can tell is just recovery. The recovery requirements. Like you're saying, I mean, you could, in your 20s, you could stay out late, sleep 4 hours, 5 hours, still make it to the gym, get a workout in, do it all over again. And so just prioritizing sleep has been important for me. Some of the recovery activities, I still don't do as good as I should with like stretching and some of the mobility work, but, adding other recovery pieces to it, such as what's hot right now is sauna, cold plunge. I actually think there's a value in that. So I'm doing that, and red light therapy. So some of the things I wouldn't historically do, I've incorporated. And then also, I could go in my 20s, 6 or 7 days a week with, pretty intense workouts, not need that much recovery for the muscles and body. And so I try to be more intentional about taking either rest days or like active recovery days to mix in, because it's more like playing the long game with health span today. And when you push it too hard, sometimes you end up with, a strain or an injury, and then it actually sets you back where you can't work out for a period of time. So going back to that whole thing with consistency, you got to take care of yourself to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
I think the regiment.
Yeah. What's been the benefits that you've noticed with red light therapy?
Inflammation. So I've noticed inflammation also going in my 40s. I have more inflammation than I used to. So I think it helps with that. We've had some positive feedback, and there's some studies, but skin, actually, we've had some people that have noticed hair growth associated with it, which I'm not too worried about, fortunately, yet. But really, the inflammation has been the biggest thing with the red light therapy. And then I really enjoy, I hated cold plunge at first when I first tried it. It took me a while to get adjusted to that, but now I love it.
Sleep. What about sleep? How important is it for you when it comes to recovery then?
Yeah, I've changed my tune on sleep. In my 20s and 30s, I was like, I embraced the motto, I can sleep when I die.
Yeah.
Thought it was tough guy to, sleep a little and like just go hard charging. And over time, I learned that was the wrong approach.
Yep.
I read the book, I believe it's called Why We Sleep. And I thought that was pretty impactful in understanding the benefits and the importance of sleep. I mean, a lot of it is common sense, but we just underappreciate it over time. And I think at least there's been more emphasis on it in recent years. So I really try to dial that in through, just a more prep leading into the time I'm going to go to bed, try to go to bed pretty close to the same time every evening. The lights, dimming the light, not having overhead lights on, following some of those protocols.
Yeah. Let's go through full process. So starting with when you wind down, what time is it? And what are some of the actions that you take?
Yeah. So around 8 o'clock is when I start the wind down process. So usually I'll turn off the overhead lights if we're like in the living room or even in our bedroom. We don't have a TV in our bedroom, so we watch TV typically in a different room. I'll wash my face, brush my teeth, do all those things. I'll take a few supplements related to sleep.
What do you take?
I take, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically like helps reduce stress hormones. And then I take a combination. I think Andrew Huberman recommended it, but it has, I think, L-theanine, magnesium, apigen in it as well. And so I'll take that about an hour before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll do like a herbal tea. Sometimes I'll jump in the hot tub for a little bit for 20 minutes. I don't do that every night, but I try to do that occasionally, or take a hot shower around 8:30. And then I try to be in bed around 9:30.
Yep. And there's lights out straight away?
Yeah. So I'll set my alarm, put it in the bathroom, and then wind down. And then one of the game changers that for us was purchasing an 8 sleep mattress cover.
Yeah, we got one as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right? For those listening, what's an 8 sleep?
So I think they have multiple options now where you can actually get the mattress versus it's just a cover that goes over your mattress and has a system that pumps water, and you can have separate zones. So your partner can have one zone and you can be in another, and you have your preferences as it pertains to temperature, and it will adjust the temperature throughout the night to maximize deep sleep and REM. And also it warms up closer to your set alarm, like whenever you're wanting to wake. That helps you actually wake up easier. So they have an app that goes with it. You can just see what your sleep score is in the morning if you want to check that. But a lot of times it'll just it gives you some stats and it'll be like, we adjusted the temperature 23 times throughout the night to optimize your sleep score. And one of the benefits was I like to sleep cold. Yeah. My wife likes to sleep hot.
You're speaking my language.
And I was having
my side's known as Antarctica in our relationship.
Exact same. So we were fighting over the thermostat in the room for a while, and then now we both have a comfortable setting on our beds, and I have noticed a difference. So that was one of the best purchases I've made in several years.
Yeah, yeah. So then waking up, what time? It's about. What time are you getting up now?
Right now, I'm doing about 5.
About 5, yeah. That's a solid amount of sleep. Do you track? So like Aura that I have. Do you track with the Aura or Whoop or anything like that?
I used to do Aura. I'm using basically the 8 sleep for my sleep scores. Yep. I wear a Garmin watch a lot that has resting heart rate and some HR. 8 sleep has HRV too, which is nice to be able to look at. So I used to do Aura. I actually do like Aura, so I may add that back.
Yeah.
I've never tried Whoop though.
Yeah, I did years ago. I think it's still great. It's just more of an aesthetic thing for me of not having something, from a wrist standpoint. Right. This looks a bit better to me. Yeah. It's not as good like certain exercise at the gym and it'll get scratched a little bit, but to me, it looks a bit better. And I can have this on when I'm speaking on stage, for example, whereas having a band that doesn't look that good, to be honest. That's my take on it anyway. Yeah. That's really the only reason, but I used to have it and it used to be great. I didn't see anything that I didn't want to utilize in there. That's been really impactful for me personally over the last year. I was averaging about 6 hours and 45 minutes of sleep, from start to finish, not including actually getting to sleep. So that period of time wasn't enough. Yeah. I felt very exhausted last year at different times and, mentally fatigued. And it was just a grueling travel schedule as well. So this year's been very, very diligent in making sure that I think that bedtime that you referred to is so important I know for me, I'm getting up around about 4 or 5 a.m., whether I like it or not, right? Whether I go to bed at 8 o'clock or whether I go to bed at midnight, I'm probably going to be waking up somewhere around 5 a.m. Yeah. It's just my body clock is wired that way. And I've just learned to love myself in that way and honor myself in that way. A great night's sleep starts the night before, like the in your routine beforehand. And that's, incredibly important. So this year I'm increased it by about 30 minutes. So about 7 hours and 15 minutes. That's good. It's so good. And just really honoring when I'm feeling tired, like the last 3 nights, I think I've slept for 8 hours and 24 minutes. Then there was about nearly 8 hours and then nearly 8 hours, like 3 nights in a row. And that barely happens. But I've just felt like I really needed that. And I think for me as well, I have previously wanted just to power through. You got this, man. Come on, get into it. You got this. And the quality of that sleep I found to be incredibly important. I saw there was an episode on a podcast a while ago, a sleep expert that does a lot of stuff on the athlete side that, there's a percentage improvements of reaction time from a memory standpoint, decision-making. Yes. Like they are sizable differences, percentage improvements. And it's free. Yes, there's certain things like the 8 sleep you're going to buy and other things, but largely it's, if you could get a 10% improvement, for example, and it doesn't cost you anything, right? Yeah. You should be implementing that. How have you gone then within a team environment? If you know the importance of sleep, you know the importance of recovery, how do you go about instilling that in the team to ensure optimal performance?
Yeah, I talk about it. quite a bit.
Yep.
So my team knows like I do all these things, and yeah, I'm not going to like say you need to do this or you push it on them, but I think just going back to leading by example, like I think they see that, and maybe that may encourage them to do, embrace things similar or not. I mean, and I'm not going to force anyone to do anything, but
yeah. Do you talk to your team about personal goals, some of the stuff that they're aiming to achieve to get better each year? Or is it mostly just on the business side?
It's more business, but I mean, I do try to check in with them on their personal life too. I don't get into what their goals are, but that may be actually something good to add.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, if you all of a sudden know, okay, this is a goal that somebody's shooting for.
Yeah.
This is what they're working for.
Yeah.
Then you've got some mechanism to be able to go, okay, this is what's motivated them right now. This is what they're inspired by right now. And being able to utilize that, because at the end of the day, if you can, okay, they are going in this direction and you're going in that direction and you're both able to achieve the goals and dreams that you're aiming to achieve, then, I mean, for great employees, they're never going to want to leave.
Yeah. Actually, I do have one example. Our head of our dental team, he ended up signing up for a half-Ironman. And so we were able to talk about that, and I was able to share my experience with him and some of the things I was doing along the way. And it was pretty neat because we got to actually do the same race together. This is a couple of years back. And so
that must have been good.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. What are you excited about going forward when it comes to the business side, the health side, and anything else?
Yeah. So business side, we're expanding some services. I mean, like I mentioned briefly earlier, we're in like a very challenging healthcare services environment with a lot of uncertainty. So we're just trying to control what we can control, look for new opportunities to innovate, leverage technology where it makes sense, also look at service lines that would be beneficial to the communities we serve, but also beneficial to the organization to have those in-house. So we're starting to add some specialty service lines. I started last year. We're going to continue to grow that into the next year. So I'm excited for that. On the health side, my wife runs a gym we own called the Indoor Athletic Club, and it's focused on fitness, wellness, recovery, all those things we've talked about, which is fun to be able to go hang out there and work out. And she does a great job running the company there, but continuing to grow that community, really lean into that, try to really continue to embrace health and wellness, stay consistent with it. From an early age, I decided I wanted to be healthy as a parent. And
early age is in how old?
I was, for sure, I remember back at least 11 years old because my mom passed away when she was 39 from cancer.
Wow.
And then after that, my dad had like type 2 diabetes, has some heart issues, a lot of things like that. So that he's dealt with. And I just remember the importance of trying to stay healthy. And I set a goal actually very early on that it was my goal to be able to play sports with my kids when I was a parent. And so that's kind of driven me to stay on track for all these years with consistency. And I want to continue that because my youngest is still 13 years old and he's in the midst of playing several different sports. And I think it's, him seeing us, my wife also works out a lot, seeing that, being in that environment of health and wellness, and the value of health and wellness really translates to business too. I mean, I'm much more productive when I'm getting sleep right, when I'm exercising on a regular basis, when I get my nutrition, dialed in. Mental clarity is so much better. Your ability to just be able to endure and deal with stressful situations. Like when you do hard things, some of these things that other people may think are stressful aren't that stressful when you put it in perspective for yourself.
Well, I think there's a building that occurs with that as well. I remember someone saying, it's probably about 5 years ago, and I get this from time to time, man, you must be so disciplined. And it's like, yeah, it is there, but it's the continual, okay, then there's this piece, then there's this piece, and then, okay, like you mentioned, get nutrition dialed in, now I'm going to get exercise dialed in, now get this. And there's so many layers that are built over the course of what is now decades. Yeah. Right? And over the course of that, you're either stacking good habits or good rituals, or you're stacking bad ones, stuff that's taking you away from where you're wanting to go. And I'd say for those listening, I might even do this myself. Like I mentioned about earlier, Jim's episode about doing an access audit, you do a habit audit. right? And look through like what are some of the things that you're doing consistently right now, and rate those, right? How good are they? Are they aligned? Are they out of alignment? And then what are you going to do differently going forward? I think that could be something really helpful. I really love that from such a young age, a tragic situation that occurred and also then led to some pretty, what have gone on to become pretty ingrained beliefs about the importance of health, and something that has been now passed on to you from a parent standpoint as well, right?
Yeah.
That thing that you mentioned, I think, is really important as well. Finding a reason why you're going to do the action itself is really important, especially when it comes to well-being. This is any area, but we're specifically talking in a well-being space here. I had a client a little while ago, and the question around, okay, wanting to improve on a well-being front, specifically reduce body fat, why? And, the answer was, want to look great at the beach. That was the reason.
Yeah.
I said, it's a decent reason, but let's see if we can dig around and find something. And we found to be able to carry my daughter and to be able to throw her around and play and do this as she gets older. All right, now we're talking.
Right.
Now we're talking. I think this will happen. I joke a little bit because I've long since finished up playing Australian football. But my oldest nephew, Will, is probably probably 2 or 3 years away from hitting the seniors. And I've told him that when you hit there, I'll come back to Australia during the season and we're going to play a game together. Right?
I love it.
Come out of retirement and do that. So now it's on the, oh damn, I've just realized now it's on the podcast. I've got to do it. So,
follow through.
Yeah, I've got to follow through with that. There's this beautiful thing. We talked about external accountability earlier. Rock on. There it is in action. That's right. So, but that reason why you're doing it has to be bigger than just doing it for the sake of doing it, or, I've got to get this done. I think of it as having a purpose bigger than your problems. Mm-hmm. The moment you've got a purpose, a reason why that's bigger than any problem you're going to come up against, it doesn't matter how early you have to get up. It doesn't matter how challenging the situation is. It doesn't matter how stressed you are. If the purpose is bigger, right, then that's that capacity piece of like, there has to be enough capacity there from the purpose itself and from the actions that you're taking to enable it to be the results being a byproduct of the action you were always going to take because it was aligned to who you are.
So yeah, we were talking about, doing a habit audit earlier. And I think a good element to add to that is how much time you're spending on each of those habits and how do you spend your day? Like tracking your week or a couple weeks, you might be surprised how much time you might have available to do other things that are maybe higher priorities or something you're going to swap out of what you consider a bad habit with a better alternative. And I mean, I guess probably one of the best books on, habit forming that I've read at least is Atomic Habits, which a lot of people know about and some of the ways to stack and, develop those habits. But time management, especially as you move up an organization, how you're wanting to spend your time, what you consider balance for yourself, doing those audits is valuable and identifying where you might have blind spots or gaps or opportunities to strengthen your performance in a certain area to have more alignment.
Yeah. Have you done that for yourself? And then how do you see balance?
I have. Yeah. And I was surprised because I watch movies more than I thought I did.
How did you go about actually tracking it? Was it simply writing it down?
Yeah.
It was writing it down.
Yeah. And I didn't do it like in 15-minute increments or anything like that. I did a broader swath of it, and really looked to see, especially I focus more on the things I wanted to replace, like the things that seemed more like, whether it's movies or scrolling on my phone, things like that. I wanted to make a few changes around. So yeah, that was beneficial. And just overall balance, I'm not the type that talks about work-life balance. I just talk about life in general, and there's priorities in various areas. And for me, it all kind of blends together, and I know which direction I'm trying to go in, and some of the things I want to do with my family, I work that in. So I don't try to fully compartmentalize and separate them. And just like examples, like it's really important to recharge, from work. Just like exercising, we talked about how you go intense, you do, especially as we get older, we need more recovery built in. Just like in business, if you're going super hard, you need to have time to recharge, or you're going to burn out and have issues, and your performance will deteriorate, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm on a vacation, I'll wake up early, knock out some emails before everyone wakes up, and still have a great time during the day, and I'll mix it all together. And it helps if you enjoy what you're doing for work. You don't see it as work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone has that capability always. They may not in the current state like what they're doing, but I've just never found it. I haven't been worried about that work-life balance so much. And there'll be periods of time where you're in a sprint where you have to be out of balance, focused on work. Like I talked about with that turnaround, for example, versus other points where it's more, you're operating on the status quo, is not too much turbulence going on, and you can balance it better. So
yeah.
I think on the continuum and the longer term, rather than just compartmentalizing.
Yeah. There's a couple of episodes that from previous guests, one with Jim that I mentioned about before, and then one with Paige Goss. With Jim, he shared about something he learned from one of his bosses, Andy Mooney, in the retail space, and it was blaze and graze, right? Either you're blazing or you're grazing.
Yeah.
Right? If you're blazing, you're on, right? And you're executing it. It's full execution mode. And when you're grazing, it's off. And Jim shared the example of if Andy went away on vacation for 2 weeks, you're capable executives, you execute. I don't want to hear from you unless something is on fire.
Yeah.
That blazing and grazing, I think it's even more important these days because there are so many distractions you mentioned about, like scrolling through, for example, other distractions that can occur, that if we're doing those things using those terms, in our grazing time, then we're not truly replenishing the energy. We're not truly recovering. And there's going to be a bit of debt there that we're in arrears in a way when it comes to, using a banking term. And so that ability to be able to truly recharge is your ability to get rid of the things that are sucking your energy, are depleting you of energy. That's really important. And then when it comes to the balance side of things, Paige and I had a conversation about this. There's a number of episodes ago, and she actually just had an acquisition of her company. So congratulations, Paige, if you're listening. Awesome to hear. And we spoke a bit about work-life balance and how, she said as well, she doesn't see it exists. And the way that I've thought about it for many years is that usually when somebody's thinking about work-life balance is that they're actually aiming for fulfillment. And that's usually what's missing. And the reality is that they just don't balance ever, I don't think, at certain times, right? There's sometimes you're going to be working more, there's sometimes you're going to be living more.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, the way I think about it, at least, is if we go, okay, that's the vision that I have, that's the outcome that I'm aiming to achieve. And then is the way that I'm living, my values, my beliefs, my actions, are they lining up? And if they're lining up, then there's going to be an element of fulfillment there, even though it might be challenging, it might be stressful, it might be long hours at different times. And each person has their ideal as to how many hours they're working per week, what kind of money they're making, these things. And getting clear on those enables you to determine, is the vehicle that I'm utilizing right now, from a role standpoint, whether you're running a company or part of a company, is that lining up?
Yeah.
Because that's going to enable the fulfillment to occur. And if it's not, then again, that comes back to your responsibility of you've got to be willing to go through the process of understanding what that is for you. And what skills they need to be developed in order to be able to get to where you want to go, and what role is going to enable you to fulfill on that.
Have you had to deal with situations like, not everyone's wired the same? So, if you're working with executives and they maybe have a similar approach, but then you get a lot of employees coming in talking about wanting to have work-life balance. How do you be empathetic towards that? And do you need to dig in to understand what they actually mean by that?
Yes, what I do first up is, and this comes back to understanding people's personal goals, right? And because it doesn't mean you have to go right down into all of the details. Some people might not even want to share some of those things, but getting a general feel for what is it about balance that you're looking for? Oh, you know what? My kids have this game, they play play baseball at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. And that's something that's like in my previous role, I couldn't get that time off. And now it's something that's really important to me. All of a sudden you got, man, maybe it was that and they're willing to work other hours, or maybe it is a specific amount of hours, but getting that clarity first and foremost, I think is really, really important. Because again, if you can care enough in that moment, because at the end of the day, I would want each person to be able to live the life that they want to live and achieve some kick-ass results in the business side. You do that, then that person is bringing the best version of themselves to work. If they're missing out on certain things, whether it is sleep or whether it is their kids doing something or experiencing something, that's a problem. That's a challenge. And it changes over time as well from a balance standpoint. For someone who's got a young family, that's going to be very different as someone who's got fully grown kids, right? From a balance standpoint. And so I think understanding what that looks like is important. And because we all have different perceptions of it, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. One other thing that I wanted to touch on from early part of our conversation around the uncertainty. You're in an industry right now, there is a solid amount of disruption occurring, as is the case with basically every industry in the world right now. Yours in particular, though, you mentioned controlling the controllables. That's one piece. How do you go about ensuring that your team remains at feeling a level of empowerment when there is so much that feels outside of their control?
Yeah, it's very challenging at this time because there is a lot of things, external factors that do impact our business that we rely on, whether it's federal funding or some other opportunities with reimbursement, because we have Medicare and Medicaid patients and things like that. So, I mean, we have open conversations around it. I think asking for input of ideas of how we can better the organization. What are the things we can do that we can control? There's always going to be some level of nervousness around the uncertainty, the external factors, but we just need to recognize what those are. And then what can we do in the next, 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months to position ourselves in the best place possible to weather that storm, whether if it's negative or not, or what are the innovative opportunities we have? How do we think differently, not using the old playbook? So those are the conversations we're having about really challenging each other. And then as, CEO, not trying to just, be authoritarian around it and really asking for input and solving this problem together. And having that buy-in is helpful, I think, as a team, especially when you're going through difficult circumstances, and acknowledging it's a vulnerable time and, we don't have it all figured out, but we are going to position ourselves in the best, place possible to make it through this time.
Yeah. What I like about your approach with that is first and foremost is vulnerability. Is we don't know. Like there's a bunch of things that are unknown right now, right, and we don't have it all figured out. And there's almost a banding together that maybe is coming. Do you think that's maybe come from the turnaround that you went through and witnessed that?
I do.
Yeah.
And we have several of the same leaders on the team.
Have you been deliberate in that because you've noticed that before and you've been bringing those in?
Yeah, I think it's been helpful. Yeah. And I mean, those were the people I've worked with. I've wanted to keep them on the team because I know they're able to go through challenging times like that. And, we've had success doing that. And they care about the company a lot and the patients we're serving. So it helps that we're not just doing widgets. Like everyone seems to have a purpose behind what they're doing and feels like there's a strong mission of the organization and they get behind that. So that bonding from that previous experience, there's several senior leaders still on the team today that went through that experience.
That's interesting. So let's flow on from cause there's so much wisdom in what you've just shared in such a small amount of time with that in this part of the conversation. Vulnerability, first and foremost, we don't understand, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there is a banding together then. There is a coming back to mission, and why it is that we're doing that. There is clarity of roles and responsibilities from what you shared there as well. People know what they're responsible for and why it's important, why it matters. Then there's the communication on top of that. Then the other thing that I heard in there as well is the power of questions, is that you're coming to this asking for input for starters, like let us know. And then you utilize in your language, what questions, how questions, like what are some of the things, how can we do this? Those move us in the direction of getting answers versus, you can ask the question of, oh, are we really going to be able to do this? If there's fear type questions, well, there's now you're allowing doubt to creep in if you ask questions like that.
Right.
Questions like that are a yes or no response. It's like, can we? I don't think we can, and you get doubt within there. It's no, all right, what are the options? How can we make our way through this? What are the things that we could do to innovate? How might that work? What could be the return? Like these types of questions, why is that important? These why, what, how questions, what if questions, like what if there was a way to do this? What might we think about? Right? These types of questions guide our brains, guide our minds in coming up with answers. Because the way I think about that is like strategically guiding our curiosity, right? We have specific criteria as to what it would mean to be successful in a certain area. We have the mission that we're on. We know the outcome that we're aiming to achieve. Okay, based on that, what could we do that would enable us to do? What if there was a way to do this? And you notice like the language, the curious language and the curious tonality together, and you utilize that, the power of language, the power of quality questions that helps guide the conversation. And it's amazing to me how the quality of our language can guide and determine the level of empowerment that people feel inside the organization.
Well said. And the other factor I didn't acknowledge was we had a really strong board of directors.
Yep.
Many of the members were on the board when we went through the restructuring and today. So they have that experience, and they've been very supportive of the strategies and moving quickly, because you have to be nimble in this environment as well.
Yeah.
And act with a sense of urgency. So really banding together is critical to move things forward.
Yeah. How do you go about moving with urgency with a company that size now?
Sometimes it's challenging, but I do think having like the systems in place, like we talked about, the OKRs, where we're prioritizing what we need to do. Since COVID, the rollout of more Zoom, Microsoft Teams, being able to leverage those virtual platforms, because we do have 23 clinics spread across 4 counties. So we're pretty spread out. So trying to communicate to the organization, we do quarterly town hall meetings. We do a quarterly newsletter, and we'll talk about some of the, good things that are going on in the organization, some of the challenges, the environment we're operating in. So, everyone in the company has some idea of, what the pulse of things is in the company, and also in the broader picture, external environment. But I think just having those weekly cadence meetings, and I'm not one that wants to have meetings for everything. Like you can go meeting heavy pretty easily. So you should probably do a meeting audit every year as well to pare that back also. But we found that, having that weekly senior leadership meeting has been helpful. We also do a monthly operations review. So we have a lot of opportunities to connect and have those conversations.
Yeah. Make those changes that are required along the way. Yeah. It's so good. Dude, really good conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
We have a rapid fire segment on the show called Your Edge. Values, beliefs, and habits. First question, what's your number one value and why? Resilience
is probably my number one. And that's being able to be steady through setbacks, challenges, adversity. And I think failure is part of the process for long-term success. And how do you, work through those challenges, overcome them, learn from them, and move forward, and do it with a steady hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a belief that shaped who you've become, whether it be a belief about yourself, about others, about the world?
Pressure is a privilege. It's something that I've embraced, especially over the last 10 years, and especially going through that restructuring and learning from those experiences. And, as you move up into leadership roles, you feel more weight on your shoulders from going even from controller to CFO. There's more pressure to, perform. You felt all that responsibility, and then going to CEO. And I made that move during COVID-19, which was in healthcare specifically, and it impacted everyone, but even working in healthcare was pretty challenging during that time. So really leaning into it and reframing it from not being something you want to avoid these high stress situations, but using it as something you lean into as an opportunity to learn and grow. I found that as kind of an honor to have. If you have pressure, you're probably in a position to have impact. And so I've tried to really embrace that because as CEOs, you're dealing with some high pressure situations.
I've never heard that, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to have that. I'd probably be added to the wall of different beliefs and stuff that I have. And that impact that is made, is it often something that you see when there is that privilege there, feeling that privilege? Is it self growth and development, or is it external to you, and that makes it even more impactful? Like, is there a mix? What have you noticed?
I say it's a mix, but I do think it is that opportunity for growth, and it's demonstrating you can push your limits, like get out of your comfort zone, not be complacent, and really stretch yourself in a good way. And then there's the external impact of that if you're making good decisions and leading the organization well, or, it doesn't have to only be business. It can be other areas of your life. But I feel sometimes people avoid those situations because it's uncomfortable. And if you're in that position, there is responsibility associated with it, but it's also an opportunity to shine as well.
Yeah, I love that. What's a habit, routine, or ritual that you can't live without, whether it be a daily habit right out to an annual tradition? You can go with both if you like.
This is boring, but exercise, like incorporating. Like if I miss, a few workouts in a row, like I get a little bit kind of like mood wise, a little irritated, I can tell. So I try to like ingrain it like it's as important as eating and sleeping to make sure I make time for it. I think it's important to invest in yourself. If you're also trying to, if you're ambitious, if you're trying to move up, all these things to have, a high performance life, it's not selfish to invest in yourself. And, sometimes you hear people like, oh, you're going to go work out again. Or sometimes, girlfriends, partners, past people are like, oh, you're not, you're selfish by spending time doing this. Well, actually, no, this is a small investment which will have good outcomes and I'll actually probably treat you better. My mental clarity will be there. I'll be in a better mood. So I think it's important for leaders and maybe the audience to really make the time to invest in themselves, because it's actually helping other people.
Yeah.
As well.
I think with that, it's really good to discuss, because I found that if I can take care of myself, and that part of that is the health and well-being side physically, but also mentally, and that going back to being my uncompromising best friend in that way, if I can experience the fulfillment, if I can experience things internally, it enables me to be that giver mentality, that someone who's giving freely without expectation, knowing I'm going to get taken care of in some way, shape, or form. But I don't need anything from the specific conversation, for example, right? I don't need anything from a specific interaction or something that I'm doing. I know I'm going to get it back in some way. But that taking care of self first and foremost, because if you don't, and if you think about it this way for those listening, if you think it's selfish to go and work out or to take care of yourself, maybe flip that to being, what if it was selfish the other way around? Because if you're not being the best version of yourself internally first and foremost, you're going to need to get certain things from other people, right? In order to feel good enough, in order to feel that you're getting what you need from a balance standpoint. Because if I'm not feeling good enough internally, I need to get it from somewhere. And so I'm going to need the validation, right? And so there's going to be different interactions that occur. But if I can get it met internally first and foremost, then there is a selflessness that occurs, because I don't have to think about myself at all. I'm healthy, I'm well, and therefore I can now fully focus on you. I would say that that's more selfless than the other way.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Love it. Dude, thank you for coming on the show. Where can people go to find out or connect with you, find out the work that you're doing?
The best way is probably just my LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show again. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And for those listening, we'll, again, as I mentioned, have everything mentioned in the show notes linked at cameronatlas.com/podcast. We've got some great new guests coming up, so make sure you hit that follow button, leave a comment, and until next time, go and write the next line in your story. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode here on The Edge of Possible.